Alright, what's going on today, YouTube? Welcome back to your favorite cyclist YouTube channel. This week, we're talking about compressionless brake housing. But before we get into today's video, if you are new to my channel, make sure you head down below, hit that subscribe button for me. If you already are subscribed, make sure you hit that bell icon right next to that. That way you get notified every time I upload. That way you don't miss any of this awesome cycling content on this channel. So like I said, today we're talking about compressionless brake housing. So some of you guys might be confused on what I'm talking about. So let's first start off with what is compressionless brake housing. So first thing I'll show you is just this regular housing here. This is pretty much what you'll find on pretty much any bike out there. Looks pretty similar, it's just black, nothing fancy about it, very flexible stuff. You can twist it just like that. It works works well, works good. This way you're gonna find on pretty 90% of bikes out there. And if you look at the compressionless, or if you look at the regular housing, which is a compression housing, you'll see it's kind of a coiled wire in there. You can see underneath just the plain old rubber jacket on there, there's just a coil of wire in there, surrounded by pretty much like a plastic sheath to keep it all together. So it's just a coil in there. So when you grab your brake lever, it's pretty much compressing this coil as you pull the brake lever, therefore giving you a lighter feel and a more modular feel, but not necessarily the best braking power you can get. So we go ahead and look at compressionless housing. Kind of looks the same, right? They don't look any different than each other. Both the Poseidon Redwood and the Poseidon Norton, I have compressionless housing on both, hence orange and blue. Comes in all sorts of colors, just like regular housing does. So what's the point? It looks exactly the same, just not the same color. So if we look at a little cutout here of the compressionless housing. So this is the Jaguar compressionless housing kit here. So we go ahead and look at a little cutout of that cable housing. You'll see that underneath that plastic sheathing there's actually a layer of Kevlar in there to provide extra strength. And then you have a plastic sheath, and then under that sheath there is a little bit of like individual wires kind of headed all around there, all in straight lines all the way down through the cable housing. And inside there are another little plastic sheath, just like you'd have on any other cable. And what this may look familiar as is some of you guys who work on bikes, this kind of looks like shift housing, and it is very similar to shift housing. Shift housing uses a compressionless style housing because they want it to be accurate as you shift through the gears. Shifting does put a lot of tension on the cable, and with shifting as you shift through the gears, you want it to be very accurate as it goes through. You don't want the cable housing to compress and flex around as you're shifting gears. Otherwise you're gonna have problems getting in gears. So shift cables use a very similar housing to this. It's normally smaller. Shift cable housing is 4mm, brake housing is 5mm, so there is a slight difference in size there. Now there is one other thing that's different with a compressionless brake housing versus a shift housing, and that's going to be this layer of Kevlar around here. So that Kevlar is made to add even more strength to the housing. Your brakes, if you pull the brake lever with compressionless housing, it undergoes a lot of stress and a lot of pressure from just the brake levers to the brakes versus your shift housing does. Shift housing doesn't necessarily need to be a super ridiculously strong housing. It doesn't undergo continual and strong applications of it. It pretty much goes through a shift and it's done and it can settle. Brake housing is a little different. You're putting a lot of pressure on that, so that extra layer of Kevlar keeps it from blowing out of the housing. So that is compressionless brake housing. Now you won't see this very much, like I said, on bikes off the shelf. Bikes off the shelf are going to come with just your regular old compression housing. So nothing fancy, the coil stuff. That's what's going to come on, like I said, 95% of bikes just going to have this stuff right here. However, you can always buy this off to the side. They make the compressionless housing just as a spool of housing, so you can buy it just as a spool. You can buy it in kits like I did. I bought the Jaguar kits that have the cables, have everything you need to install them on your bike, as well as the colored housing so you can pick whatever color you want to go with your bike. Pretty cool stuff. So you can pick it up however you would want and install it on your bike whenever you need to. So now that we know what compressionless housing is, does it actually make a difference on bikes? So obviously compressionless brake housing is going to come into play when using mechanical brakes, so something with a cable on there. If you have hydraulic brakes, it's not going to affect you at all because you have hydraulic brakes. You have hydraulic fluid or mineral oil going through your brake lines, it's not going to matter to you. It's going to matter to those of us that have mechanical brakes, and I would say the big ones is going to make a huge difference for the people with mechanical disc brakes. So if you've been on my channel for a while, you know I kind of had an aversion to mechanical disc brakes. I pretty much made the jump from a standard V-brake setup to hydraulic disc brakes, and I never wanted to go back from hydraulic disc brakes because the difference was so massive. So when I got the Poseidon Redwood here, and then after that, the Poseidon Norton, and these both came with mechanical actuated brakes. The Poseidon Redwood comes with the Tektro 2-piston mechanical brakes, while the Poseidon Norton comes with the JuneTech cable actuated hydraulic disc brakes. So it is a hydraulic disc brake down here, but it is actuated by a cable. So when it came to these, and having my first experience with both of these brakes in quite a long time, they were kind of lacking. I will say that they were lacking power quite a bit. Now, after having done this to both bikes and investing about $35 for the cable kit on each of them, so 35 here, 35 here, it makes the most sense to do a compressionless brake housing on a drop bar bike. And the big reason for that is because of your levers right here. So on a drop bar bike, your lever both does the braking and the shifting. So in order to switch this to something better like a hydraulic brake, you would actually need to change out your whole lever assembly here and your whole lever assembly there, as well as the brakes down at the wheels. So there's a lot involved in doing that, and that's kind of beyond what most people feel like they want to do. They don't want to change up everything on their bike. They don't have to change everything up here. This is a big investment to change out your levers on a drop bar bike. So that's where I think the compressionless housing comes in by far the most. That $35 investment, maybe some new tape on your bike to refresh it, gets you some solid feeling brakes for a very affordable cost without having to switch completely to hydraulics. Now for a mountain bike, same investment at $35. I don't feel like it's going to be completely worth it for most people out there. And that's because you can pick up a solid set of hydraulic disc brakes for 50 to 70 bucks. You can pick up a Shimano 2-piston hydraulic disc brake, ready to go, that you just slap on your bike and you have hydraulic disc brakes right off the bat. And in my opinion, that sometimes is the better option for you because it's so simple. It's just swap out your lever here and go to a hydraulic disc brake. Now there are going to be times where you might not want to do that. There are older group sets for mountain bikes that have the shifter and the brake lever combined. If you don't want to get rid of that, but you have disc brakes on your bike, you might go ahead and just keep what you have and go to the compressionless housing. And it makes a big difference. Doesn't make them feel exactly like a hydraulic disc brake, but it does give them a much better feel to them than you would get just with the standard housing on there. So the Poseidon Redwood, we had this bike for a year essentially before we made this change to compressionless housing. And hearing from what other Poseidon owners have said, compressionless housing made a difference. However, I went for a year with riding this bike just with the regular cables and housing on here. And they worked fine, and really I didn't think the braking could get much better than that. That felt about how mechanical disc brakes had felt for me for my entire life, and I kind of thought that's about as good as it gets. I installed the compressionless housing on here as well as the new Jaguar split cables on here, and it made a world of difference. You are able to lock up both wheels on the Poseidon Redwood. It's incredible how much of a difference that $35 kit from Jaguar made. I couldn't believe that was actually a possibility on this bike. Now the Poseidon Norton we really haven't had for that long, and I went ahead and made that change already. And that's because the brakes felt very lacking when I turned the bike downhill on the top of a trail. Up the trail worked fine, on the road they worked fine. The second you pointed the bike downhill and you wanted some braking feel to it, that was gone. It didn't feel like a good braking feel at all. It was pretty rough. So for you guys, and for the experiment of let's try the compressionless brake housing on the mechanical actuated hydraulic brakes, and let's see if that actually works. See if it feels good or if it was kind of a waste of money. So we made the change over to the compressionless housing about a month into owning this bike, and it's made a difference. It made those brakes respond like they should. Like I said, it doesn't feel completely like a hydraulic disc brake. It's missing some of the modulation you get out of a hydraulic disc brake. However, it gives you the braking power that you want. It gives you a solid stopping power when you need it and when you want it, and it does it no problem at all, and it makes a difference. But like I said, for a flat bar bike, I would recommend going straight to a hydraulic disc brake. I would not really worry about the compressionless housing if it was me. I feel like it's going to be more cost effective for yourself to just go with a straight hydraulic disc brake. Now some people are afraid of that. If you are afraid of that, or you have an older setup that has a shifter and brake lever combined and you don't want to change it, the compressionless brake housing is a great way to go. Drop bar guys, if you're running a mechanical disc brake, go to compressionless housing. You are not going to regret the change over to that. It makes a drastic difference in the lever feel and how well it brakes. You can stop this thing on a dime, no problem at all now. It is so much fun. It makes a huge difference. I can't believe it made that big of a difference on this bike. So one thing I will comment on for the drop bar bikes. With the regular compression style brake housing here, so like I said, it is very flexible. You can pretty much twist this into a knot and it will still has shape, still allow the cable to pass through, won't affect braking very much at all. So you're able to really twist that around. If you switch over to a compressionless housing, it's a much stiffer of a housing. That's about as far as you can get it right there. So you can see it is a much stiffer housing because it has all those different cables running the full length of this versus it being coiled inside. So it is a little bit tighter to deal with. So if you have a very aggressive spot right in the drop bar section here where it switches back to the flat bar across the top, you may run into problems with that. That is one thing that's nice about the Jaguar kit, is the Jaguar kit does come with a section of regular old compression housing. Comes with this section probably yay long of compression housing that if you wanted to and you can't make this curve with the compressionless housing, you can go ahead and use that little piece right here and then put your compressionless onto the end and run compressionless the rest of the way. In my case, I did not have to do that. I was able to make the compressionless housing work all the way from the lever all the way down to the brake. I had the full length of this and it worked no problem for me. However, some of you with those tighter bends right here may have some issues. Just something to be aware of, that Jaguar kit does include solutions for you to make that happen. So if you guys are interested in checking out a compressionless brake housing kit for yourselves, I'm going to have a link down to the ones that I used below, both to the Jaguar Road kit as well as the mountain bike Jaguar kit. I'm going to have a link to both of them, that way you can pick one up for yourself and try it out. It's a pretty inexpensive way to improve your braking dramatically. I couldn't believe it made the difference it did, and it's going to make a difference, I think, on anybody's bike, especially if you've never changed the housing and cables before. It's going to make even a bigger difference just with that new cables and housing in the first place. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up. Appreciate the support. If you have any comments or questions, let me know down in the comment section below. Love talking to you guys. Love answering any questions you guys have. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching today.